the June the 10th meeting of the Tecumseh Police Services Board to order. And I would ask, I note for the roll that Deputy Mayor McNamara has just come in, and then we're waiting for, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Becchetti has not come in. Mayor McNamara is here, and we've been told that Staff Sergeant Jamie Smith will not be available. So other than that, we're in good shape. With regard to the meeting, and there is Deputy Mayor now. So with regard to the agenda and the business today, is there any declaration or disclosure of a pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll move on. I would like an approval of the agenda as amended so that the supplementary agenda for the Police Services Board meeting dated Thursday, June the 10th, 2021, as duplicated and delivered to the members thereof be accepted. I'm looking for a mover, Mark Gomes, and a seconder, Paul Sweet. Any question on the agenda? All in favor? Thank you. Moved. The approval of the previous minutes, I have read them myself and I see nothing, but I'm looking for a motion that the regular minutes of the April the 8th, 2021 Police Services Board meeting as duplicated and delivered to the members thereof be adopted. And I'm looking for a mover, Mayor McNamara, and a seconder, Deputy Mayor Becchetti. Any question? Any comments on those minutes? They're pretty straightforward. All in favor? Thank you. Passed. So we're already down to our delegation. So Leonard Gill is our project manager for the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan for the City of Windsor. And he has graciously accepted our invitation to come and speak to us with regard to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan and its progress to date. So Leonard, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Great. Thank you all very much for having me today. So as you may know, we submitted a report to the Police Services Board. That report was dated for May. I will be providing a bit of a verbal update and a summary of that report, but also provide a few additional pieces of information as we have gone to the Tecumseh Council this week, actually, to provide further information. So I will provide a bit of a summary of that session as well. But for starters, in terms of the summary of really where this report begins, it's if we'd like to I'd like to provide a summary from the December 8th Five Eyes meeting since that point to now. And on December 24th, just for starters here, you may recall that the Ministry of the Solicitor General issued correspondence across the province indicating that there was a new CSWB submission deadline, that deadline being July 1st, 2021. At that time, we had connected with our core team. We've also connected with our leadership table and then to city and county councils just to seek direction on what would be the risks of attempting to pursue that July 1st deadline, as well as those risks that may be established or occur if we were to continue on our December 31st, 2021 deadline as we had originally discussed with the municipalities during the months of October and November in 2020. Through those discussions, we found and we received support from city and county councils to continue to pursue the December 31st deadline, as we felt and city and county councils felt that it would significantly constrain our ability to engage in a fulsome and meaningful community consultation with our partners, but also with the public as well, if we were to continue to pursue that July 1st deadline. So with that, and with the direction of City and County Council, we submitted a letter to the Solicitor General indicating that we would be submitting an interim report that provided a process update, as well as request that the Solicitor General review the imposed deadline a bit further. And this is in line with what many other municipalities across the province were doing. We had discussed with our OMSA Community Safety and Wellbeing Working Group about those different options as well. And there are other municipalities that are, again, pursuing similar action. For instance, like your York region or Durham region as an example. So from that point on, in January, we began our engagements with our enhanced sector network. As you may recall from our original discussion, that network was really looking at how do we connect with priority populations and individuals and communities and community groups that work alongside those priority populations. In total, we established 8 different meetings. One for the 2S LGBTQ plus folk, for Indigenous communities, as well as racialized persons, youth, newcomers, seniors, accessibility communities, as well as broader community groups. And we did that in a way to ensure that we could contextualize some of the data that was available, that we had collected through publicly available means, but also to ensure that, again, we were baking in those voices in the planning process from the beginning. So that occurred during the months of January and February, and then in February and March, we continued on to our public consultation efforts. We established a regional communications team consisting of communications departments from each municipality, as well as Windsor Police Service, LaSalle Police Service, and we were in contact with OPP, the OPP communications department. But as I've mentioned previously in other discussions, because of the provincially wide mandate of OPP, it just wasn't appropriate to have localized specific advertisements for promoting the consultation engagement. That being said, they were made aware of our steps moving forward, and I really do thank Inspector Miller for all the support during that time as well, and during the with respect to the leadership table. So from there, during that public consultation efforts, we had virtual public meetings, 1 for each municipality and 2 for the city of Windsor. We also engaged in an online survey. With respect to the public engagements, the virtual public meetings, we were able to connect with a total of over 140 residents through that process. For the town of Tecumseh, that was 17 individuals registered and 14 had attended for a participation rate of about 82%. And that allowed us to get more of that qualitative information, the discussion of what were some of the priorities that individuals may have from a regional lens as well as a localized lens. In addition, because of our connections with the network and discussing with those different groups, we were able to add some key recommendations right off the bat. So things like live closed captioning to those meetings and having those options available in English, Spanish, French, and Arabic. Also, we offered it in American Sign Language. At the time, there were no residents who requested that service, but it was available on the off chance that there was an individual who needed that. So again, that was part of our partnership with our network members there. In addition, we added a teleconference session through Life After 50's Seniors Center Without Walls initiative. And that, again, was with seniors from across the county and the city. From there, in terms of our online survey, we were able to engage, have over 1,500 respondents to that survey. In terms of total completed surveys, we had 840, and that included our print and our online surveys. With respect to the town of Tecumseh, there were 54 surveys that were completed by residents over that time period. In terms of making sure that we try to reduce some of the barriers that individuals may experience with accessing an online survey, we connected with our partners once again through the network and provided a total of 200 surveys through the Windsor Essex Community Housing Corporation, Community Partnership, and H4, the Homelessness and Housing Help Hub. Over that process, 11 fully completed surveys were collected. From there, and with respect to our data analysis, we've now actually, as a bit of an update, we've completed that data analysis and we're able to refine what priority risk and protective factor categories we would be looking at through that endeavor. That actually has led to additional conversations that we're going to with each municipality to discuss the results of those public consultation efforts and how they tie back to the other inputs that we've been collecting along the way. So as you may recall from the beginning, we did an environmental scan. We had an asset map that was completed. We also created a current state data report to look at that publicly available data. And so when you piece all of those different inputs together, it has led us to review and have some different priorities for the region and establish strategies for, that's our current step now, is establishing strategies for said priorities. As for the next step, we have already submitted the interim report to City Council. And that was put on the consent agenda, and so that's been approved. It's now going to County Council for June 16th. We hope a similar process will go, but I'll be there for questions if anything. From there, moving forward, we'll be, in terms of the next steps, we'll be really establishing those strategies and a performance measurement and outcome strategy for each of, or plan for each of those strategies. And hopefully establishing that, developing that final report. It is in line with the timeline that we have discussed previously. We are still looking at having it fully completed and submitted before December 31st, 2021. At that point in time, if you have, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask along the way, and we'll go from there.
Well, thank you. And I'll open the floor for questions if anyone has any. I certainly have one. Early in the proceedings, there was an email sent around to the 5 police services boards serviced by the OPP to get together, and that kind of fell by the wayside. I don't know. We responded, and I don't know who else responded to. Because it was very preliminary, it was not clear in my mind whether you were seeking input from the police service boards or whether you wanted to have us as a group available that you could keep us updated on the progress of the community safety and well-being plan.
So thank you for that question. In terms of that, that actually was the Five Eyes meeting that I was referring to at the beginning. We had met on December 8th. And I provided an update of the process that we were taking, as well as the next steps that we would be going through, and opened up the opportunity for questions should anyone have it at that point in time. I believe that was an hour-long presentation in terms of the session, but that's also the reason why I'm coming back to these the different police services board to provide that update in case anyone was unable to attend that meeting, and ensure that that again we have a fulsome understanding of our next steps and how we're proceeding.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Your worship.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and through you. And once again, I know we had a conversation just a couple of days ago, and certainly want to thank you for making time in your schedule to attest. I think one of the big things I think that for me is obviously the whole intent of the safety plan itself. It's a bottom-up driven process, and for many, and I was from the meeting we had at the county, the very first one, when we looked at how far reaching in the community it is, and I made comment to that on Tuesday at council, Mr. Chair and members of the board, how far reaching it really is, and with over well over 200 stakeholders in the region that are part of the ongoing process of putting the whole community safety plan in play. It is a monumental exercise for obviously Mr. Gill and your team and all of those that are in certainly in the process. But it really is, in my opinion, and if you want to drill down within all of those organizations, it is a personal driven stakeholder bottom up approach that is near and dear to all of us, and certainly in our community. So that was a point certainly that I wanted to put in play, is that everyone in the community has a role to play. in developing the plan, and for sure that is exactly what's happening. So I think and when I'm hearing for some of my peers across the province and so forth, there are a few other jurisdictions that have taken, our approach in terms of regional. Many others are still struggling as individual communities and so forth. So we're I'd say well positioned to meet all of the guidelines, and certainly I want to take this opportunity again on behalf of Tecumseh, Mr. Gill, to thank you for your leadership in driving this process forward.
Thank you very much. I'm humbled by your kind words, honestly. I think from the very beginning, what we were hoping to do is really emphasize that meaningful conversation and meaningful consultation as much as possible, understanding how challenging the pandemic has been for that. We've had to change and kind of adapt to those different challenges. But I think ultimately we've still been able to hit the mandate that we've put in place, as well as really push forward on having some great discussions from since the beginning in terms of that planning process to now the prioritization setting process.
So, Mr. Gill, are you saying that there are other municipalities that are not as successful in moving their agenda forward, or do you maybe sail your own ship? And
yeah, I'm going to chime in here. I'm not saying our local municipalities.
No,
others throughout the province.
Yeah, that's the way I got. That's. I just wanted to make sure that was. Are there any other questions, comments? If not, then I entertain a motion that the update report on the development of the community safety and well-being plan for the Windsor Essex County by Leonard Gill, project manager, community safety and well-being plan, City of Windsor, be received. I'm looking for a mover. Paul Sweet, seconded by Mark Gomes. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Mr. Gill, thank you very much for your participation and your patience. We really appreciate it. And like I say, this is you don't need to stick around for the rest of the evening's agenda, but we very much appreciate.
Wait a minute, he gets bonus points for doing that.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Again, thank you very much for having me. Have a great day.
You're quite welcome.
Take care.
Before we move on to item G, which is our monthly OPP report, Your Worship, I just wanted to point something out to you that remember these babies? I came across this Tecumseh Police Service Board golf shirt. It's been years since I seen that, so it's amazing. I thought I'd put it on this evening just for your benefit. There you go. So, Inspector Miller, are you making the presentation? I think Sergeant Hornick is, but perhaps Sergeant Hornick, you can tee up which one of the reports that you wanted to speak to.
Yeah. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to just provide a little bit of an overview, and Byron will be able to present the monthly overview for everyone. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Before you start, Byron, as you move along, eventually, if you could reference the page that you're on, so that our background screen can be rolled up and be in sync with what you're saying, we'd appreciate that greatly. Thank you.
Yep, I will.
Great. Well, again, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to say a few words. I'd just like to open by offering my condolences to the family of Sergeant Keith Lozon. Keith was a 27-year member of our auxiliary OPP in Essex County. Suddenly he passed away about 2 weeks ago. Keith has been in charge of all the training for our unit for the last 10 years. He has worked extensively within the town of Tecumseh. He's devoted countless hours to the various communities that he served. He also served as a volunteer firefighter, as well as having a full-time job. And he was passionate about everything that he did, including certainly his relationships with his community, his friends, and certainly his co-workers. So I just wanted to mention that about the passing of Keith. I'm not sure if members of the board knew Keith or not, but if you didn't, I'll just give that notification now. been a busy month, been a busy couple months actually for Essex County OPP in a lot of different ways. And I'm just going to kind of touch on this. It's kind of a more of a strategic type of a statement. And I'm just going to actually, I know we're talking about the month of April, but I'm just going to jump ahead kind of the month of May. As you know, we spend a lot of time working and identifying various organized criminal enterprise groups. In the month of May, we executed 8 very significant search warrants in the south part of the county, in the Leamington area. We seized approximately $24 million worth of illegal marijuana. We also seized cash, just over $17,000 in cash. And plus we have a large amount of cash that is bundled that we have not been able to count as of yet, but significant amounts of money. From a proceeds of crime perspective, we probably seized around $330,000 worth of property. That would include vehicles and various cannabis type of equipment. I think, as everyone knows, that cannabis is a very lucrative commodity, and legalization has not removed the involvement of organized criminal groups or gangs. And in some ways, they're better able to hide in the legal cannabis market. While the Health Canada medical cannabis regime is used for legitimate marijuana purposes by law-abiding citizens, some Health Canada authorizations to produce or to designate other individuals to produce cannabis for medical purposes are being abused. And in those particular cases, those authorizations are not for medical purposes, and the cannabis is being sold on the illegal market. So as you can well imagine, these investigations are very much intelligence-led. We do have our OPP-led Provincial Joint Forces Cannabis Enforcement Team, of which we've been involved in for a considerable period of time. So these investigations are very complex, very labor-intensive. The intelligence lead up is significant, and then certainly after the fact is very labor-intensive as well as going through the court process. But just to be assured that we do have a strong focus on that, on the illegal side, and we will continue to make life as miserable as possible for those individuals that are attempting to benefit from that and be involved in the underground economy that does exist. I had the pleasure this morning, at 8 o'clock this morning, to participating in the 4th annual general meeting for the Windsor Youth Child Advocacy Center. So, and I know that's a particular group that you've been very supportive of. So the Advocacy Center certainly, it provides a child-centered, safe, neutral location for our children and our youth of your community to disclose their abuse to specially teamed, a team of professionals. So prior to the development of the Windsor Essex Child Youth Advocacy Center, which was developed by a civilian OPP member in Essex County, the youths that were subject to abuse were interviewed by several individuals at various locations around the community and by different, certainly, healthcare professionals. So what we've gone in now, we have a single location where individuals that have been abused, we're able to take them, and we're able to provide all the expertise at one particular location in order to help those individuals out. So often when people will say that we don't see the police, I speak about this a lot. If you don't see the police, there's a good chance that we are with a victim of a crime. And whether it's a young child or it's anybody within our population, we're going to do absolutely everything we possibly can in order to help those individuals. We take great pride in celebrating the diversity and the uniqueness of the Windsor and Essex County. We're very fortunate to receive financial support through the Department of Justice. As you can well imagine, it is very difficult to get money from the government in the form of grants. We work very aggressively at that. All of our partners do, and we've got just an amazing group of partners that work in collaboration with all of us, and that includes a lot of your community partners. And I'm going to mention this. It's the Sexual Assault Crisis Center, the Regional Children's Center, Victim Services, Children's First, Youth Diversion, We Fight, We Trans Wellness, and other groups as well. I can tell you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, that we have seen a 37% increase in clients served in this past year. and a 77% increase in the number of interviews that we have undertaken. Our investigations, these are joint investigations, have increased by 41%. There's been a 64% increase in the cases investigated, and we laid a total of 293 charges. A lot of these charges, again, related to young people from age 0 to 16 years of age, with the age category having the most impact is between 6 to 12. Types of abuse range from sexual to physical to family violence and their wellness as well. So we've kind of taken an opportunity of the situation that we're involved in with COVID, and we have to kind of be able to do things in a different way. And this is a good example of what we're doing today, how we're able to successfully hold our Police Service Board meetings in a meaningful way and encourage that type of dialogue. And we continue to do that with the Windsor Youth Essex Advocacy Center in developing kind of new ideas and developing new programs that we're able to put online for everyone in order to benefit. And it's very important for those individuals that are listening to my voice, or certainly the voices of the leadership within the town of Tecumseh. If someone is being abused, if you are being abused, we urge you to please contact the police. We will take your information in utmost confidence, and we will deal and help you out as we go through this particular process with you. We will not leave you alone, nor will your community as well. So that's an important message I did want to get out, Mr. Chair. So thanks for the time on that. And just kind of a final wrap up, you probably heard on the news that the OPP is now doing an evaluative study on body worn cameras. It's being specific to a detachment down in Haldeman, but I can tell you that there are members of Essex County OPP that are equipped with those particular camera devices. This is going to be a study for 1 year. And after that study takes place, then the organization and the government decide exactly what they'd like to do. So we certainly embrace the opportunity for technology, but we also study it very, very, very carefully. And we'll look forward, I know the government will certainly look forward to reporting on that in certainly the months to come, or at the end of that particular study. And one of the other things I did want to mention, Mr. Chair and members of the board, I realize that when the OPP puts together our action plan and we do our business plan, we try to be as inclusive as we can, and we try to have a look at the commonality that does exist within all of our communities, because there actually is a lot of commonality that does exist in the forms of different type of crime and property-related crime and illicit drugs and mental health awareness and things like that. But it is not lost on me, nor will it be lost on me or any members of Tecumseh OPP, that the board also has priorities as well. And you want those to be addressed. So we'll continue to have a focus on those, whether it be with your community policing program, certainly, you know, our mental health response unit. Sergeant Hornick was really one of the ones that really had the vision and really got this particular unit to kind of where it is now, that we're continuing to make great inroads. And please don't be shy in asking him any questions that you may have about that particular program as well. We're also aware of the issues that are taking place within our parks that you want us to spend time on and attention on, and hopefully we are doing that. I know that everything is documented that we do get, and we take great pride in working with our community leaders and resolving those instances so that people can go about and enjoy themselves in the way that they should. And also our visibility and engagement with the community is really important to me. It's important to all the members of the Police Service Board. It's important that we get to know who the members of the community are and kind of what their issues are and what they're seeing. We would much prefer to be able to know a person when we go to see them, as opposed to having to introduce ourselves. It is a two-way street, however, so we do encourage members of your community, if you see a police officer, please reach out and engage them in a conversation. They will be more than pleased to tell you exactly what they're doing or why they happen to be in a certain area of the community. And they try to be as strategic as they can. If they happen to see a police car in a certain area, it's probably not by chance that that police officer is there or police officers are there. They're there for a specific reason. So we continue to encourage people to use the non-emergent line to contact the OPP for assistance. Because as you can imagine, most of our days, our calls for service are literally stacked with serious occurrences that the officers are responding to. And but your concern or your issue that you want to raise with us is just as important. And we will certainly do that and follow through and get back to you if that's what you wish. So I know I've taken up maybe more time that I should have, but anyways, I just want to provide that overview before Sergeant Hornick has a chance to kind of talk about the report that he's going to present.
So Inspector Miller, your words are pretty timely. I have to tell you that some of the topics you spoke on were touched upon by our association at our annual general meeting and our spring conference. So obviously there's a lot of dovetailing of thought process going on here with that, and that's good. That's what we're here for. So maybe we can ask Sergeant Hornick then to take us through, I guess it's the April crime statistics.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, and members of the board. Just if we were to take the April overview, just to go to page 4. On the top, in the top row would be the Tecumseh top calls for service, and the first top call for service are property checks. When we look into the property checks themselves, those are primarily generated by patrol officers, and 10 of those occurrences seen there are directly related to Lakewood Park and some of the vandalism and stuff that's taking place there. So our members have taken initiative upon themselves to ensure that a property check was generated so that statistics could be gathered and ensure that it's getting the proper coverage that's required. So next to that would clearly be traffic enforcement. Traffic enforcement's going up. We're noticing that clearly there's more and more traffic out there. I think people are taking advantage of the weather itself. And as such, we're noticing that those numbers are improving as well. So on page 5, you can see in terms of calls for service, how they are a little bit elevated as to compared to last year at this time, but then with the understanding that we're still under restricted conditions and stuff like that, and certainly they're not as high as they were the year prior to that. Page 6, the violent crime indicators were down to 4, which is lower than last year at this time. However, property crimes are now have increased since last year at the same time period. One of the reasons why property crimes were lower last year potentially was because of the fact the more people that you have at home, the less opportunity there are for the suspects and stuff to enter the residences. And that's when we have more people that are leaving the house now, and all that provides more opportunity for them. So those are up just a little bit. Page 7 are motor vehicle collisions. So the month of April, we've got 24 as opposed to 10 last year at this time. Again, you know, it certainly could be because more people are out, and also there are having traveled back and forth between Lakeshore and Tecumseh today, there certainly is enough construction going along everywhere, which makes it demanding itself. So fatalities. 3 collisions that resulted in 4 deaths, unfortunately. So we're still working on those and trying to focus our efforts in the hot spots, so to say, to make sure that we're having a level of presence and enforcement. to reduce the speeds. If we move over to page 8, for the month of April in Tecumseh, we've had an one impaired charge, and also driver's license suspensions. We've had 3 of those this month as well. So even though we go out and try to explain to everybody clearly impaired driving and the dangers of it, there's still those who intentionally choose not to follow the rules, and as such, they unfortunately we have to deal with them, and then they're taken off the road. So page 9, our criminal code charges, they're about on average with the year before. However, there's a few less. You'll notice that in the next display, there's drug offenses where it says under CDSA 7. I've looked into that, and I've spoken with our analyst who prepared this document, and it was confirmed that was an error. That it's not 7 for the month for Tecumseh. That's for another municipality, and for Tecumseh itself, it was at 0 again this month. So that was an error that we certainly can have this report rewritten and can clarify and clear that error if you like. Provincial offenses on page 10. Page 10, we're at 73. Last year at this time, we're about half that number. So like I said, going to be more and more traffic. The weather's getting nicer and stuff like that. So we certainly had a few nice days of weather in the last couple of weeks, and certainly in the month of April. So I'm sure we'll be seeing those numbers go up as well. Traffic stops have been up as well. And on page 11, we talk about mental health calls for service. We're at 7 for the month of April, but I can tell you is in terms of May and now being into June, and with certainly the continued restrictions that people have, I know it certainly seems like from hearing the radio in the office that we're getting a lot more of those calls that are coming in. So unfortunately, and with school coming to an end and all that, and the pressures that the kids have in online learning, and of course the families that have, well, as having their kids on online learning, it's certainly taxing on everyone. If we were to go to, say, page 13, you can see the ride stats for Tecumseh. We're at 4 rides for the month of April in Tecumseh, which is online with Kingsville, and then foot patrol hours for Tecumseh is 96 hours of foot patrol hours, which is nice to see. So the officers aren't only present in their cruisers, on bicycles, and or I should say in other methods, be it ATV or whatever. However, the foot patrol hours are up, which is nice, so they can have that contact. Last page, 14 notable incidents. Primarily was an event that took place which involved a lot of officers for a short period of time, where you can read it yourself, and that officers were dispatched to a local convenience store where somebody looked like they needed help. So Good Samaritan tried to help her out, which point in time she decided to steal his vehicle for his efforts. And then that led across the county, and the final traffic stop took place where she was forced to stop in Leamington. So even though there's something that takes place in one community, clearly it can certainly start impacting the rest of it. And so it's important that we keep our eyes open, and that we patrol areas, as well as make sure that we manage the other calls for service that continually come in. But it's interesting that they can end up from one corner of the county to the other and create havoc from the entire way. So if anybody has any questions or anything, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I suspect we do, and I think we can turn that screen off then and get everybody back up on the board. There you go, lovely. So Sergeant Hornick, one of the things that's nice for us to be able to tell people who stop us and ask us is traffic. It appears to me that there seems to be an emphasis on enforcement of traffic going right now in the Tecumseh area. A lot of stops and a lot of ride programs, etc. Do you say that would be a fair thing for us to be able to report to people who are interested in that?
I would say so, yes.
Excellent, that's good.
No.
Any, please. Go.
Oh, that's it.
Okay, Your Worship, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just a few little points too, and that I've noticed too, and you know, the property crime and you know, a bit of an uptick too. And I'm not going to use like last year basically with lockdown, and we have partial lockdown obviously this year as well. But you know, if we're going to use it compared to 19, and now we're up to 39. Is there, you know, is there a correlation here? I mean, obviously with people out of work and so forth, but when we look also, there's an uptick. You know, we put a lot of attention on COVID-19, but there's a huge uptake on opioids and overdoses that are happening. And would you say that there's a correlation here or partnership in terms of you know, people looking for easy money, you know, because of the drug issues that are now seem to be on the rise?
I would say so, yes. I'd say they go hand in hand, and certainly you'll have, like, a lot of property crimes are crimes of opportunity. And, you know, like I said before, when you're having more and more people out and about and all that kind of stuff, then needless to say, your residents or certain businesses and stuff become easier targets. And then clearly, if you're in a lot of the people that we're arresting, or if there is drugs involved or whatever, it's usually that they're also involved in other criminal activity as well. One supports the other for sure.
Is there, now I'm sure Inspector and certainly Sergeant, that you're obviously paying attention to this, and I'm looking at not only our community, but the others as well, where there seems to be an uptick in that area. Is there any special programs that you're looking at certainly bringing forward and implementing, or is there again maybe an opportunity for a little bit more education to the folks that kind of protect their you know, their property? And it seems what's happening now as well is that you know, work at home, more people are at home and so forth. So but we've seen kind of a bump up in commercial areas, ice cream parlors, for example, and convenience stores and businesses that for many of them have been shuttered. And it seems to be like that's where it seems the opportunity is serving, you know, the criminal element to do. Is there some sort of an opportunity now to maybe address the public or some more opportunities for them to help protect, you know, their property?
Yeah, I can, maybe I'll just kind of comment to that as well. And we're kind of fought with the challenges of a lot of different things. I'm going to give you an example. The officers arrested an individual the other day. Within 1 hour of that person, after being released from court, immediately entered into a car, stole the person's wallet, was sitting front and center, and walked down the street with it. So we ended up arresting that person. So now we're into hour number 2, arrested and had to release again. We're not able to hold a lot of these people. In relation to the drug issue, we see that a lot, and your question is a well-placed one, Your Worship. You know, we're increasing our efforts from a drug enforcement perspective as well. We have a number of, sadly, addicts. They're addicted. They need to feed that addiction. And we do find that correlation between the property thefts and them feeding the addiction. The addiction to be fed may only require maybe $20 or $30, right? So They'll go after that in whatever way that they can. They'll look for a shed that's got a weed whacker, that's got a shovel, that's got a rake. They'll take whatever out and then attempt to sell that, or leverage that on the street. So we work with the centers where we take these individuals well, but we also deal with the parents as well. And in some cases, we're dealing with some younger people. So it's youth at risk, and people are making some really bad choices. The frustrations that we hear from the parents, it's very unfortunate. I mean, some come from just amazing families. However, some bad choices lead to a difficult road. And one of the last things we really want to do is introduce them into the criminal justice system. Once somebody's introduced to the criminal justice system, their likelihood one day of being able to get a good job and maybe work for the town of Tecumseh doesn't become that great anymore. It just doesn't. So we encourage the partnership within the medical community, the various addiction agencies that support these individuals. We try our best to stem the flow of drugs, the illegal drugs that are coming into the community. And that's why we're seeing a lot of the vehicle stops now of people transporting drugs up and down the highway along the 401 and other major routes that are coming in. So we in some instances know who those individuals are, but they're very sophisticated. They've been caught so many times. They've learned the techniques of the police, because on a trial, that all has to come out. So we have to continue to be kind of really innovative and creative. So we're doing our best to trying to stop where those drugs are coming from before they would get into the town of Tecumseh. We got to stop that flow and identify those people. And it's a game of cat and mouse, unfortunately. And sometimes we've seen people that have decided to make that change in life. And the change in life comes when there's opportunities that are presented for them. And that's why I always look to the leadership of a community, is we can't do all of this ourselves. Some of these people, all they want is an opportunity. It's not so much about making a lot of money. It's just having something meaningful to do. That's all it is, something meaningful, so they can build up a little bit of a resume. Because on a good day for an addict is a really good day. A bad day is a very bad day. But we can't continue to keep resting, and we're not going to rest ourselves out of these problems. So we've got to do what we can as a community and look for some of those opportunities where we can identify those people and see whatever supports that we can go and do, and never be disappointed, because it's like young children. Things sometimes continue to happen, even though we tell them not to do something, but we never give up on those people. We don't give up on an addict either, and the community should never give up on an addict. So that's why we implore the communities to help us out with this particular issue as well.
Your worship, any other questions?
Just two. One of them, will you, for our detachment, see an increase in the bike ATV patrol hours? I know, we've had none there. I know the foot patrols, we've got good numbers there. We've got 50 parks roughly, and places like Fairplay Woods, which is a very popular place, and probably difficult to patrol, I guess, in that regards. But I would see some opportunities or some advantages in increasing some of our bike patrols within our major parks.
Yeah, and that's again something that we can do, and you've mentioned it, and I'll just kind of leave that with Byron. He'll have a discussion with the platoon supervisors. I know that we have a number of ATVs, and they're all fully deployed in areas that where there's a significant problem. And I'm not saying that it's not a significant problem, but some of the areas that have come to us, they're suffering some significant damage and some assaultive behaviors as well. So we're trying to focus on those areas. But certainly, we know that the community likes seeing a policeman on an ATV or on a bicycle as well. And I think it has a positive impact. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing, and I'm glad you mentioned it, Sergeant Horn, in terms of some of the vandalism that's been occurring in Lakewood Park, Green Acre Park just recently, and others. And I think there's a good relationship opportunity to build with officers and young people, on bikes and so forth. So I'll certainly look forward to seeing that, the numbers go up. The last for me is I've noticed as well is that where we had made some tremendous way forward was on the 911 missed dials, and I noticed now we're almost 50% increases. They've been gradually going up, and I don't know if it's because more people at home and certainly so forth, but I think even for ourselves, putting it on our website as well, is that be aware of your devices and where they are and so forth. But when we look at the region as a whole, every one of them has a quite an increase. Lakeshore 3 times the amount, and so forth. So I just want to bring that up, Inspector, and maybe we can even with Mr. Constable Duguay and send a message out there to just be aware. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be going to 911s, but be aware of your devices and take precaution. Missed dials also at any time puts police in harm's way, and people have to understand. Also it takes them away from proactive policing, especially on the missed dials and hang-ups.
And yep. Glenn, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, no, we see this as well. And again, a lot of the calls that we get, and I think that Byron would be able to speak to this as well. We'll get the call, and then very quickly we'll get another call to kind of disconnect from that call, that it's not needed. Well, once it's a 911 call, it is a priority call for us. Regardless of what that person is saying on the phone, that becomes a priority-based call for officers to go there, generally 2 people. So we'll continue to try to educate, because I think, when we're just kind of looking at those numbers, like 102% increase, that should not be happening. People need to be more careful.
Okay, Margaret, I saw your hand raised.
Yes, but I think Paul Sweet's hand was up before mine, so defer to Paul.
Fine. Very good, Paul.
Well, thank you, Margaret. Last year around this time, there's a fair amount of discussion regarding vehicle noise, and I was just wondering if there was anything to report as far as enforcement in that area.
Byron, I'll have to have you answer that.
I wasn't saying specific to noise or anything like that. I don't have any data to support that right now, and that would go along lines with traffic stops and that, for the specific reasons why our traffic stops were at the numbers they were and why they were done. I can't answer that, but I do know I'm certainly seeing the guys on patrol and stuff like that, and clearly the motorcycles are back out and all this, so I'm sure that we'll be dealing with that again, no doubt.
Thank you. Paul, any other question, comment? No? Margaret?
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the 911 calls and ask if there has been a change in how those misdials have been reported, because I think as a result of the the letter campaign, the motion from council, and the letters to the Solicitor General's office, that there was some difference in how the OBP were recording those 911 misdials, and that's why the numbers dropped so sharply. So I'm just wondering if there has been some change administratively in how those calls have been handled, as we're seeing an increase in them. I'm not sure that it was attributable to a change in the public's behavior, but rather a change in how they were being dealt with administratively. So I just wonder if you could look into that for us and see if there's any other explanation associated with that jump that the mayor had noted.
Yeah, those calls are continuing to being triaged by the Communication Center, Provincial Communication Center for us. Those numbers are not even privy to us. That will have to be close to the commissioner, kind of reviewing. I know that it's significantly down from previous years, that's for sure. So we're certainly going to fewer and fewer. I mean, the officers are seeing that. So I know when we look at 28, if I was to look at data from the last 3, 4, 5 years ago, wow, it's down considerably. So they're having to manage those particular calls, and the ones that they get, they feel it's important or they need clarity on it. So they want a very quick officer response to those. But I know lots of data is being collected, and I asked once, well, how many 911 calls are actually coming in that we're not getting? And that information is not available. That's for the commissioner.
Any other questions? Mark, I think I see your hand. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Inspector Miller and Sergeant Hornick. It's not a question, but it's a further comment to His Worship's comment regarding the foot patrol hours. I was very pleased as a board member to see how they had increased significantly. I think it's great. And like the worship said, one, the visibility of our officers out there and being able to be visible, to communicate with our community at large. I think it's a great idea, and I'm really pleased to see the numbers were higher, and hopefully they'll increase through the summer months. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mark. And as the weather improves, I think you're going to see a rise in the number of bike patrol hours. And I think when officers are patrolling the parks, as our mayor has pointed out, large number of parks, I think the fact that a bike can get right into the park and it's not like a car that's at the road level, that it acts as a further deterrent to vandalism and crime. So. Yes, Margaret, please.
Thank you. And thank you, Chair, for jarring my memory. So we did bring to OPP's attention earlier this week the vandalism at Optimus Park and the damage to the building, as well as the camera footage showing youth on the roof of the building about 10:30 at night. And Sergeant Hornick was very quick to get that turned around to messaging from Constable Duguay to try to enlist the community to maybe watch out for those valued public spaces, and let's do our part to keep them safe, because we certainly don't need to see kids climbing up there and kicking out the soffits and doing damage to the roof. It just costs everybody money, and it's not productive. And vandalism in the large washrooms with ripping out the soap dispensers and leaving the goop on the floor for the staff to try to navigate in the morning is I don't know whose idea of fun that is, but it's it's just disgraceful, really. Thank you, Sergeant.
Okay, no further questions. Then we certainly thank Sergeant Hornick and obviously Inspector Miller for their patience and for being available to us to answer all these questions. We very much appreciate that. So having no further questions, I'm looking for a motion that the OPP report for the months of March and April be received. Moved by Mark, seconded by Mayor McNamara. All in favor? Passed. Thank you so much. We'll move on to item H in our agenda, and that's reports. And first item is a verbal report on our annual general meeting and our spring conference. So I would like to say, first of all, thanks to all the members of the Tecumseh Police Service Board, as well as our CAO, Margaret, for attending this year's virtual conference. There's a lot of effort went into it, and I'm very pleased to see not only does Tecumseh sponsor this event, which is something not all contract municipalities do, but also we attend very well, and I really appreciate that. So the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards has posted the conference presentations and the minutes of our annual general meeting on both their website and the conference website. So it's there. And also Ellen has appended the agenda onto this agenda for our reference. So therefore, I just intend to verbally report so that our actions can be read into the record of our Police Service Board. May 26th featured a OPP Police Service Board training session featuring a presentation by OPP Northwest Regional Commander McKillop. His presentation dealt with the detachment commander and police service board interaction and tips to better integrate the police service board's priorities and the objectives of the OPP action plan. So, so I reference that back to our detachment commander's comments. Commander McKillop spoke at length about the development of the proper metrics to grade the performance of our detachment commanders. And he then spoke on the differences in setting up objective versus subjective priorities by boards. He also encouraged us to, in reviewing our local action plan against the OPP action plan, so that they will integrate well and it'd be easier to enforce by our detachment. The evening featured a virtual reception, a magic show. Tough sledding for that, to engage people in a magic show online. Thursday was the official start of the conference, and we were greeted by our president, Pat Weaver. And then Sarah Caldwell from the Ministry of the Solicitor General spoke with the OPP boards and reviewed the aim of the new legislation with respect to both training and the creation of detachment-based police service boards. She emphasized the willingness of the Solicitor General to work with the various groups of police service boards to come to local solutions in forming detachment-based boards. Sarah covered the regulations. She also covered the regulations covering First Nations police service boards and their options in working with other boards. And finally, Sarah could offer no insight into funding for all the new boards and all the new agendas that needs to be covered in the next year or so. The annual general meeting of our association presented a slate of approved association board members, as well as our annual financial statements. The meeting was limited due to the virtual aspect of the attendees, and there were few opportunities to ask questions. That's the one part of our annual general meeting that would take virtually a couple of hours, because there were always people who wanted to get down and talk about our finances, etc. That opportunity is very, very tough to do on a virtual meeting. But there was one motion brought and passed by our board to ask our association to approach the federal government and encourage a change to the cannabis, and that's the Health Canada portion of the legislation, to provide inspection and control of privately grown third-party cannabis products that were deemed as being medical marijuana. And that is exactly what our Inspector Miller was talking about. So obviously, and that was presented by the Lakeshore Police Service Board. So I'm wondering if our inspector maybe queued them up to do that. So it was very timely. During our annual meeting, our executive director, Fed Costanen, played a PowerPoint presentation, which was made by our association to the Solicitor General, pointing out the strength of our association in providing the new training modules that will be required of all board members under the new Community Safety and Policing Act. And I think if you've read parts of that act, you know that it's no small thing. The training modules will be huge, and there'll be a big mandate for all members to get fully trained. Several of the conference sponsors were given opportunity to speak and present their products and services to us. Won't go into that. It's a paid political thing. The keynote speaker was a Dr. Hanley Defoe, and she spoke from the heart on the topic of resiliency. The talk centered around the stress in our lives, and especially in how that our routines are so very changed due to COVID. Her presentation was highlighted by her personal story of resiliency, and was a truly moving testimony. It really was.
It was amazing. I got to jump in, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please do. Yes, I have relatives who live and die with TED Talks. That's their way of expanding their horizons. And people were asking her, this has got to be a TED Talk, because it was so impactful. Anyway, our final formal presentation was from the newly formed Inspectorate of Policing. There will be much to come with this as this agency sets up its focus and its aims. And I feel that they are working towards a collaborative approach to relationships between police services, citizenry, and police service boards. They say the police service advisors as also the reviewers of the new training requirement for police service board members. I don't know how successful that will be, but that's their aim. And so that in a nutshell concludes my verbal report. And and I think I will send it on to Ellen, and Ellen can roll it into our minutes. As well as other reports, we had a report from our CEO of the Tecumseh Police Service Board response to proposed community safety and policing act regulations. Margaret, did you want to speak to that?
Certainly, Mr. Chair, I briefly, as you are aware, we canvassed the board for comments on the draft proposed regulations that have been available to date. We understand through the conference and Sarah Caldwell that additional regulations are expected to be released over the course of the summer. Nonetheless, those were the ones that we had to respond to, and June 7th was the timeline. We received comments from Chair Hales on the new advisory council to the Solicitor General, and those were presented to council for endorsement and sent off on June 7th.
Thank you. And finally, the Essex County OPP Detachment Board composition that was done by our staff and much appreciated. It's comprehensive. Margaret, I think it will do a quick summary of what we
Well, a quick summary is, thank you, Mr. Chair. So the joint meeting was held with the chairs and mayors or delegated elected officials. And the consensus was around a two-board model, which was then circulated around to each of the councils of the municipalities, including Pelee Island. The two-board model that was eventually approved was a North Shore Board of Essex, Tecumseh, and Lakeshore, and a South Shore Board of Kingsville, Leamington, and Pelee Island. So those are the two boards, with some, community representation, provincial representation, kind of meeting the criteria that were set out by the Solicitor General. Those were compiled with all of the council resolutions and links to all of the council reports that were brought forward in that regard, and compiled into the ministry's forum by Ellen. No small feat. She did a yeoman's job of pulling that all together, and to her credit, got it in on June 7th, even though that wasn't a hard deadline. Nonetheless, it's in there, and now we wait until the Solicitor General's office processes that information and gets back to us.
Thank you, Margaret. And I'll just say that this is kind of a new territory for Paul and for Mark. They were not part of that meeting with the mayors and some of the chairs of the boards when the original thought of a single board was morphed into two boards. So if there are any questions, Paul or Mark, you please feel, and actually, I guess Deputy Mayor Bichetti wasn't there either. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can. The meeting was run by the mayors with input from Police Service Board chair. So
yes, that was the meeting on May 13th, and into it with the foresight report, which I'm sure, even though the members, the newer members weren't with us at the time that the foresight report was developed, they have been given that report and are familiar with it. That report, as you recall, this board supported a one board model. However, at the May 13th meeting that was chaired by Mayor McNamara, it was the consensus of the attendees that we moved to a two board model, and that was supported by all councils, including Tecumseh's. And we would suggest, just to kind of close the loop on that, that it would be appropriate for this board to pass a motion to endorse the two-board model so that we aren't kind of out of sync with the resolutions that have been supported across the jurisdiction and particularly in the town of Tecumseh by our own council.
Then Margaret, we could do that under section K, I think, old business. We can bring I think a resolution forward from our board, and maybe at that time we can, if Paul or Mark or Joe have any questions, maybe we can thrash them out there. Would that be fair enough to say?
At your pleasure.
Okay, let's do it that way. So are there any other questions with regard to this correspondence? None? Okay, then I'm looking for a motion that the reports detailed as items H1, 2, and 3 reports be received, and that the Tecumseh Police Service Board, oh, you know what, we'll carry that later on. So those are received. I'm looking for a mover. Thank you, Joe, and a seconder. Is that Paul? All in favor? Thank you. Communications action required. Item I on our agenda, there is none. Communications for information purposes. We have just my letter, our letter, actually under my signature off to the Chief Superintendent Dwight Tibb, welcoming him to Western Region and offering our congratulations and opening our door if you'd like to come in and visit us. Second one is Ministry Solicitor General, which are proposed regulations under the Community Safety and Policing Act, and that's an all chiefs memo for your reading. And so is the next one, an all chiefs memo with regard to the vaccines for frontline police officers and special constables, and the Ministry of Solicitor General to another all chiefs memo. We are copied on all the all chiefs memos. Extension of orders under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. And finally, the Inspector General, or Inspector Glenn Miller, has sent us the new fees for the Ontario Provincial Police Services, and we have received that. And Margaret, I'm sure that came to me, but I'm sure that you had a copy and you've passed that on to our finance department, so people know that things are changing. Even that's.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair, I have, but I think it would be useful or helpful if Inspector Miller might speak to that change in fees when it takes effect and the magnitude and the rationale.
Inspector Miller, are you ready to speak on that today, or would you like to defer that to when they?
I can speak on it today. I don't have any documentation in front of me because
okay. I do.
I'm off for these 2 days, but anyways, I know basically what it is. There's only 2 areas of a chain in order to be compliant, and we weren't charging it before. That has to do with an administration fee. There's a $65 administration fee when there's a paid duty request.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't collecting that before, and we should have been. And the other is for the cost of a vehicle. And it's $25 per hour. We were not charging that. If I recall, that's the only change other than whatever the fee schedule is for the cost for the officers to attend paid duty.
I think this is for yes, for criminal record checks and et cetera. That's all those fees. So yeah, please, Your Worship.
Just a question through you, Mr. Chair, to Inspector Miller. When you the fee you referred to the vehicle, is that for third party stuff, or like a contractor says, hey, I need an escort, or I need a police vehicle at a construction site, or?
Yeah, well, it's we do charge that. We're supposed to be charging that, but we're supposed to be charging it to everybody. I think there was a thought that detachment commanders could have the authority to waive that particular cost. And when they did the audit, that's the fees that are set, not by ourselves, but by the government.
I think, Your Worship, please.
Okay, maybe explain. I mean, isn't that part of it? Maybe I'm misunderstanding, but isn't that encompassing in our contract?
Well, it's above. So this would be you want paid duty officers to be at some function.
Oh, okay.
Not really Right, that, let's say, some event and there's going to be a police presence, but you would like to make sure that there's going to be at least 2 officers there, you know, and they're not going to get pulled away somewhere else. That it's for those
I,
extra people.
if I might comment, what I got out of the schedule of fees with harmonized sales tax was the standard fees that we talk about every year with regard to police record checks, with fingerprinting for criminal police record vulnerability for vulnerable sector of our community, those kind of things. You know, occurrence confirmation reports for accidents and you know, things like that. That's the new schedule of fees. Maybe that's this here. I'm going to hold that up, Glenn. That may be in addition to what you're speaking about.
Yeah, and I don't have what it would have been, say, today to notice if there's a bit of a change. I'm not aware of what those changes are because I don't see those figures.
Well, how about this? You know, and you can't be expect. I mean, there's a lot of paper goes across your desk in a day, I'm sure. Perhaps if you notice something that should be pointed out to us, that at the next meeting you can bring it up. This is not earth-shattering, and most of these fees are collected by you, and a lot of them go to the Minister of Finance anyway. So.
Yeah.
I think in case our Tecumseh's accounting department requires some other input, maybe you want to have a quick review of that. Okay.
Sure. If you could just for the town's sake, that is the new schedule, that particular schedule. So when you request for paid duty, that's what the fees will be.
Okay, very good. Margaret, I saw your hand come up again.
Yeah, and just quickly, I raise it because it's a change mid budget year, so we will have to take measures to advance that to council because right now we're out of sync in our own schedule of fees with respect to then what is charged for OPP services. So there's a difference.
Yeah, and I apologize, Margaret. That's what I was trying to get across when I said, has this been forwarded to our accounting department? Because there is a change. Yeah, there is a change. Okay, very good. Yeah. So done. I'm looking for a motion that the correspondence detailed in items 1 through 5 be received. I'm looking for a mover. Mayor McNamara, seconded by Mark. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. Old business, the Essex County Detachment Board. Now, gentlemen, for anyone who wasn't part of that meeting, are there any questions with regard to the wonderful work that Ellen did to pull that huge presentation together for the Solicitor General? Is there any questions that? It's self-explanatory. I think we're still working out the mechanics, depending on what the Solicitor General tells us, of how many provincial appointees and council appointees. We know that. We know what we want to do as municipalities, but that part of it will also come into into the total number of people who will sit on this police service board. So I just be aware that the numbers will be significantly reduced between our 3 municipalities and what they are today under the detachment model that we have today. So I would like a motion that the Tecumseh Police Service Board endorse the 2-board model as the preferred detachment board composition for the Essex County Ontario Provincial Police Detachment Board as outlined in Attachment 1 to the county Essex County OPP Detachment Board composition, and is supported by the Tecumseh Town Council at its May the 25th, 2021 meeting. So we'll close the loop. I'm looking for someone to move that. Mayor McNamara, thank you. Seconder. We have to have a seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Becchetti. All in favor? Thank you. It's passed. Other new business, yes.
Yeah,
Your worship.
Yeah, I just want to, I want to thank, our CAO and Ellen, both, who I think without their hard work and intervention in this, we'd still be trying to figure out when we should meet as a group, and certainly we, as Tecumseh took the lead and so forth. And because of our administration. So I want to thank Margaret and certainly Ellen, and your leadership, Mr. Chair, that finally brought this up and in front of them and delivered. Although we said it June 7th wasn't a hard date, but it would, it's behind us now. So I just want to thank, certainly administration and yourself, your leadership, for getting this done.
Your worship, when you look at that form that was filled out by Ellen, and I'm sure with much consultation with Margaret and other people, it was sort of cryptic at times. And I'm thinking, I was hoping that there would be some kind of a primer behind that form that would say, this is what we really mean with this fill in the blanks, because perhaps that's the way the provincial government works. I don't know, but it wouldn't have been, sit down and tick off a bunch of boxes. There was a lot of interpretation. So Ellen, I know you're listening, and you know what my thoughts about your abilities are. You keep us on the straight and narrow so very well. Thank you again. Okay, so we have no new business. Other new business? None? Yes, Mayor Pacetti, please. Or Deputy Mayor Pacetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just
Thank
a
you.
question. I know in terms of the schools, we've been virtual the last 18 months, and our community VIP officer, has kind of been. We haven't seen him. And the last I heard, it was a constable. I think it was Matt Lupton. Is there any update, like in terms of coming this fall? Hopefully, we start being able to have the speakers and the VIP officers back in the schools. Is that the plan, to have someone in place? And if so, do you have a dedicated VIP officer for September, October to start the school year?
Excellent question.
Yeah, I can certainly respond to that, Deputy Mayor. We're anxious to be able to get our CSOs back into the schools and to the other community events that we want to. What I would need from you then, or the board, if you're saying that you want to have your community safety officer return to your community because they're currently doing frontline, responding to calls for service because everything's closed up. If you want them back in the schools, then please send me something that states that, because I have to provide an explanation. We're not putting people back into those environments if they're not, if the public or if the moms and dads don't want the police officers back in the schools, given the current pandemic. That was the kind of the basis behind all of it when the school shut down. Just trying to keep everybody safe. But we've been looking forward to kind of actually going back, but school right now, not too much we could do. I suppose virtually we could, but we don't know if there's an opportunity for us to even do that virtually. We'd have to hear that from the school boards.
No, I understand. I'm just speculating that if we do go back, everyone gets a second dose. Even the parish team, for example, the pastors, no one's been in the schools. However, if that's the case, that obviously the school board, whoever's in charge, would reach out. But in terms of if it's allowed, if and when it's allowed, I just, in terms of transition, would you be able to turn the switch on? Okay, come August, we got the okay. We could have that, and then let the, so that the schools would have that, presence, because it's well received. Especially in grade 6. They have a presence. They come into the schools, the kids get to see them, they ask questions, and so we've kind of lacked that, missed that, I would say the last year or two now. So if we could get that back up and running, if we could, we'll probably know in August when they give us direction in terms of, our parents allowed in the schools to help out with lunches. We still don't know that. So, but if it is allowed, is what I'm saying is, hopefully we'll be able to offer that service to the schools will be appreciated.
So Deputy Mayor Pacetti, the way I'm listening to this conversation is this is an action that needs to be taken by the separate school board.
Well, it would be all the boards, because public board.
Okay, very
would
good.
be everybody. So
From the
again,
Ministry of Education, I think once the province, I think will dictate.
Yeah.
opening. But, to Deputy Mayor McKetty's point, I really believe that it's been made pretty clear that kids are returning to school in September. And I'm going to take a leap of faith as my other hat as the chair of the health unit and what's happening in the area. In 2 months' time, those criteria that they asked us to meet will be not only met, they're going to be exceeded. And so I think all in all, from the frontline responders and to the teachers and to the children and so forth, they will be receiving their second dose by the end of August. So I'm optimistic, but I think it's left up to the province, really.
That's the whole point I want to make absolutely clear in my mind, is this is not a Tecumseh Police Service Board request matter. We certainly take interest in it because we take great pride in the community service officers that have held that position over the years since I've been on the board. Excellent people. But this is a request that has to be made either by the boards or right by the ministry. Am I correct?
And obviously that'll take place. Maybe my inquiry is get a heads up that should that take place, I'm not sure who's in charge, Inspector, to start tapping someone on the shoulder. Is there posting? I don't know the intricacies of how that's chosen in terms of who would be that personnel, so that you don't look for 6 months and it won't be ready till the new year. But if the province and, like you say, the school boards, they all make the request or whatever, it's just good to, in the back of your mind, to start thinking, if and when that goes ahead, we do have someone in mind, and this is the individual that will do it. So, thank you.
Excellent. Okay. And the board would certainly support your thoughts, Deputy Mayor, for sure. Okay.
I think it's good to be prepared. I certainly understand that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So item M on our agenda is next meeting. It's scheduled for September the 9th. We have the summer off, but I have a suspicion we are going to be hearing lots from the Solicitor General as all the municipalities are putting their plans forward for detachment-based boards. I'll be very interested to hear their response. They've said that it's not one size fits all, and they're willing to work with all the municipalities. It'll be very interesting to see what happens in reality. So September the 9th at 4:30 is our next meeting, and I am looking, if there's no other, I'm looking for a motion that there be no further business to discuss, that the Thursday, June the 10th, 2021 meeting of the Tecumseh Police Services Board adjourn. Can I have a Mark, seconded by Mayor McNamara, all in favor? So done. Thank you very much for your assistance and your attendance and excellent questions, comments. We'll
Thank you very much.
see